How to ditch CenturyLink fiber modem. How can I ditch the rented router CenturyLink gave me and use my own router with CenturyLink fiber internet? Can I use routers like Orbi or Google Wi-Fi that don't support VLAN tagging?
What you need: per username/password, vlan ID, most likely 201, router that supports vlan tagging, or managed switch and a regular router. When you sign up for CenturyLink Fiber Internet, they'll install optical network terminal, ONT, somewhere in your house that converts the fiber optical into an Ethernet cable. At this point they'll supply you with a router that costs $10 a month to rent. Most likely it will be the C2000T. That piece of hardware is not required, however, to replace it, you need router that supports vlan tagging and PO. Read to the end to learn how to use any router, even if it doesn't support vlan tagging. Vlan tagging. Fiber internet uses vlan tagging to differentiate between internet traffic and television service, or at least, that's how CenturyLink uses it. It's basically like creating a virtual network of computers that can only see each other, even if they're plugged into the same router. PO. PO basically means that you have a username and password to log into your internet, but not in an AOL sort of way. This is a username and password that is configured on the router device CenturyLink gives you, or you can call and change it. You can log in to the C2000T to find your username/password at this URL, or just call CenturyLink and ask them for it. Supported routers with vlan tagging. This list is of routers I tried. The router I ended up using is the Asus RTX 5300. I find it to provide around 800-850 MB/s on a wired connection. Typically 20% of your network speed is reserved for network overhead, so this is the best you can hope for on a 1 GB/s connection. The CenturyLink router was limiting my speed to around 300 MB/s, which is why I wanted to swap it out. Assuming you chose an Asus router, you'll need to install the Asus Merlin firmware to enable vlan tagging. You'll log into your router by going to this URL in your browser, using the default login, found in your router documentation, and locate where to update your firmware. If you chose the Netgear Nighthawk router, then vlan tagging is already enabled. Per configuration. Find the Internet Setup page, which will default to DHCP, change this to PO and you'll then be able to enter the username and password you got from CenturyLink. Vlan tagging. On the Asus router, go to the LAN tab, select it at the top, and on the WAN port, put 201 as the vlan ID. If you don't see the IT tab, make sure you upgrade it to the Asus Merlin firmware. On the Netgear router, go to the Advanced tab, Advanced Settings, vlan/bridge settings. Click Enable vlan and enable vlan tag. Set the vlan ID to 201. How to use any router that supports PO but not vlan tagging. If you're like me, you probably are excited for Google's upcoming Google Wi-Fi, which is their own version of Eero and Orbi. It's a collection of 3 access points that you put around your house that provides complete coverage and fast speeds. Sadly, Eero does not support PO, so it just won't work. Orbi does, and so does Google Wi-Fi. Most routers support PO. To make this work, you'll still have to do vlan tagging, but that can be performed by a managed switch, which is like a regular switch, or network splitter, but it lets you change settings by logging in like you do a router. I purchased the TP-Link TLSG105E for $30 at Fry's Electronics, but you can get it for the same price on Amazon.com. Configure TP-Link TLSG105E. The TLSG105E doesn't remember settings after being unplugged if you don't click Save Config on the right. Plug your computer into port 5 of the switch. Go to this URL in your browser. Log in with admin for the username and password. Click vlan on the left. Click 802.1q vlan on the left. Enable 802.1q vlan configuration. Click Apply. Type 201 into the vlan ID box, and name it Fiber. Check the tagged radio button for port 1. Check the untagged radio button for all other ports. Click it /modify. Click 802.1 Cupid on the left. Check port 1 and 2. Type 201 into the PID box. Click Apply. Plug the cable from the ONT into port 1. Plug the router into port 2. Click Save Config and confirm. Wrap up. If you chose a router that supports both PO and vlan tagging, then the swap is pretty simple. If you want to use any router that supports PO, but not vlan tagging, then a managed switch will get you there. The setup is a little long-winded, but it'll save you $10 a month and allow you to use your own equipment, rather than the subpar router provided by CenturyLink. If you use Prism Television, then you'll need to configure one of the ports on the managed switch to tag that with the appropriate vlan ID using the same steps above. I don't have Prism Television, so I can't say if it'll work, but there isn't a reason it shouldn't. You'll need to find the correct vlan ID in the C2000T settings, or by calling CenturyLink. Update, using Google Wi-Fi. Back in January 2017 I finally got my hands on the Google Wi-Fi 3-pack. The router claims to support PO but doesn't work for some reason. I spent a few hours on the phone with Google and they basically told me that PO is broken and they would work on a fix. I haven't checked recently to see if it is fixed yet. Here is how I set it up. My internet connection goes into the Asus RT-AC 5300 which does the PO and vlan tagging. I've disabled all Wi-Fi radios on the Asus RT-AC 5300. I then plugged the Google Wi-Fi unit into a LAN port on the Asus RT-AC 5300 and set it up as a regular DHCP router. The Google Wi-Fi router gives me complete coverage. I have all the other two units hardwired to the main unit, using a switch, and get peak speeds of 800 MB/s wired and 400 MB/s over Wi-Fi. I'm very happy with my setup. However, I'd love to get rid of the Asus RT-AC 5300 to simplify setup, but it's not slowing me down. I'll update again when I try PO again, or IPO. On the Google Wi-Fi router.
That solution works, but I successfully connected the Google Wi-Fi router to CenturyLink Fiber using the solution proposed by Patrick, thanks. I used the same TP-Link TLSG105E switch, $30 at Office Depot, and followed his instructions. However, after several minutes I was unable to find the PO password anywhere in my router configuration settings. That's when I discovered it was using IPO. Using IPO, DHCP, I discovered that the Technicolor C2100T router that CenturyLink had provided me was configured using IPO, which is effectively DHCP of vlan. This URL. Typically, IPO uses Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol and Extensible Authentication Protocol to provide the same functionality as PO. Simplified setup. This means that if you have the simplified IPO setup, like in my case, you can completely skip the PO section. Just configure the switch to enable vlan tagging, plug in the Google Wi-Fi and you're good to go. The primary Google Wi-Fi app will automatically get an IP address via DHCP from CenturyLink. I've tested and it works. I only have 100 MB/s service, but my test results show a consistent 105 plus Mbps speed anywhere in my house. Good luck!
I wanted to share some of my experiences with a PO connection via a MikroTik Hex Airbase 750GR3 device. It fully supports PO and VLAN tagging, and based on my gigabit link tests, the CPU is only maxed around 60% during upload or download tests. It's only a $60 device, and you will need to have APS if your network supports wireless. I used to use an R7000, but realized it was limiting my bandwidth. Also, in Seattle, Prism TV services are configured as IPO, and Internet Only is configured for PO. I recently changed to Internet Only, and they had to re-provision the backend to PO, which ended up disconnecting my internet around midnight, day of switch over. Keep in mind that as long as you have the login information for your PO connection, you're able to just make the configuration changes necessary to do so. For those needing these config changes, this is the following for the MikroTik. Please make sure that your firewall settings and NAT translation uses the PO Out 1 interface.
If you want to support the channel, please consider subscribing.